Welcome to this explainer. You know, today we are going to do something really important. We're moving past all those external labels and the completely common societal misunderstandings of mental disorders. Instead, we're going to deeply understand the physical, invisible battles that are actively happening inside the brain. For way too long, we've judged what we can't see. But by taking a real look at the biological and psychological mechanics of these conditions, we can finally replace all that judgment with genuine comprehension.
Okay, so here's how we're going to map out the mind today. We've got 4 distinct areas to cover: mood, energy, and focus, hijacked alarm systems, control loops and extremes, and finally, fractured realities and identities.
All right, let's jump right into section 1, mood, energy, and focus. This is what happens when the brain's engine simply stalls out.
We've all heard this kind of advice, right? Just think positive, or go for a walk, you'll feel better. Society so often treats depression like it's just a temporary bad mood that you can simply shake off with a little bit of fresh air. But the reality? It's far more structural and honestly, far more exhausting than just feeling a little bit down. Because here's the thing, depression is fundamentally a physical malfunction. Your brain is actively struggling to generate the very chemicals like dopamine and serotonin that actually make caring possible. It literally drains the color out of life. Sadness, well, sadness has a reason. It has a story. But depression, it just exists. It's heavy and it's constant. When these chemical messengers misfire, waking up completely exhausted after 10 hours of sleep is totally normal. Food tastes like cardboard. Getting out of bed truly feels like climbing Mount Everest because your brain is flat out failing to provide the fuel you need to move forward.
Building right on that idea, let's look at ADHD. People, this is not a lack of willpower. The prefrontal cortex, which is the area of your brain controlling planning and self-control, actually develops slower or just works differently. Without the normal dopamine hits required to make completing a task feel rewarding, boring tasks literally feel physically painful to start. Yet, at the exact same time, the ADHD brain is fully capable of this intense hyperfocus on things of genuine interest. It's wild. The real exhausting reality is that intention-action gap. It's knowing exactly what you need to do, but having to watch yourself fail to do it anyway, all because your brain physically refuses to cooperate.
And this physical hijacking, it is so vividly clear when we look at bipolar disorder. On one end of the spectrum, you have mania, which just floods the brain with superhuman energy. You sleep for maybe 2 hours, your thoughts are racing a mile a minute, and extremely risky decisions suddenly seem like brilliant ideas. But it burns too hot. Then comes the inevitable crash. The depression phase, where all that chaotic energy drains away entirely and everything feels utterly pointless. This isn't just someone changing their mind or being moody. Your brain chemistry is violently swinging between extreme, uncontrollable emotional poles, completely without your permission, and you are just desperately trying to hold on for the ride.
Moving on to section 2, hijacked alarm systems, surviving imagined threats.
Which brings us perfectly to generalized anxiety disorder, or GAD. Imagine if your brain just forgot how to tell the difference between an actual life-threatening danger and an everyday imagined problem. It just dumps stress hormones all over your body for everything, things that haven't even happened and honestly probably never will. Your shoulders ache, your stomach is constantly in knots. Telling someone with GAD to just calm down or stop overthinking is literally exactly like telling someone with a broken leg to just walk normally. Their alarm system is broken. It never shuts off. So, let's look at the actual mechanics of a panic disorder loop. It starts deep in the brain when the fear center, the amygdala, sounds a massive false alarm. Boom! This triggers incredibly intense physical symptoms. We're talking a pounding heart, tight chest, overwhelming dizziness. You are absolutely certain you're having a heart attack or that you're going to die right there, which of course just amplifies the terror. But the true trap of panic disorder, it isn't just the attack itself, it's the aftermath. You develop this paralyzing fear of the next attack. Your world starts to shrink. You avoid places, completely terrified of your own nervous system and what it might do next without your permission. Then we have social anxiety disorder. And please understand, this isn't just introversion or being a little bit shy. It's a fully hijacked system that treats social situations as actual physical threats. Walking into a room feels exactly like stepping out onto a stage where a harsh audience is actively judging you. Your body reacts, sweat soaks your shirt, your hands start trembling. Your brain constantly replays tiny little social mistakes, magnifying them into total disasters. The disorder totally convinces you that isolation is actually safer than the absolute terror of being seen and humiliated.
With PTSD, the alarm system basically breaks entirely after a terrifying event, like a car crash, abuse, or combat. Now, normally, your nervous system would calm down eventually and just file the memory away. But here, the mind remains completely locked into survival mode. Critically, flashbacks aren't just bad memories. They are visceral, physical re-experiences triggered by a random sound or a smell. You genuinely physically believe you are in danger again. You are technically living in the present, but your brain keeps violently dragging you right back to your worst moment.
All right, Section 3, Control, Loops, and Extremes. This is all about fighting internal chaos.
I like things organized. I'm just so OCD. Seriously, how often do we hear this phrase just casually thrown around? People joke about this condition all the time, equating it to, being neat or keeping a tidy desk, completely unaware that actual clinical OCD is absolute internal torture, not some quirky personality trait.
Let's actually trace this vicious cycle to see how it really works. First, an unwanted, often horrifying intrusive thought just invades the mind. Maybe it's a fear of your house burning down or a violent, scary image. This creates an overwhelming, suffocating fear. So to make the fear stop, the brain demands a desperate compulsion, like checking the locks 15 times or washing your hands until they literally bleed. You absolutely know it's irrational, but you do it anyway. And the worst part? It leads to mere seconds of relief before that terrible loop just restarts all over again. OCD makes you a prisoner to terrifying thoughts you never even wanted in the first place.
Looking at eating disorders, we see another incredibly desperate attempt to find control in what feels like a chaotic world. Anorexia is driven by a deeply distorted body image, where the physical sensation of hunger actually feels like success. In stark contrast to that, bulimia creates a devastating cycle of out-of-control secret eating, which is immediately followed by overwhelming shame and purging. Both of these conditions destroy the body slowly, for sure, but that physical damage hides a brutal mental trap. These disorders speak to you in your own voice. They disguise themselves as pure logic and willpower, fully convincing you that letting go of the disorder means losing yourself entirely.
Now, with borderline personality disorder, I want you to imagine living in a constant state where your emotional system simply lacks any kind of buffer, a shock absorber, if you will. Something small like an unanswered text message or a canceled plan isn't just a minor annoyance. Your brain genuinely experiences it as a life-or-death crisis. Feelings don't come in manageable waves, they hit you like massive tsunamis. This leads to really intense black and white thinking. Someone is either totally perfect or horribly terrible. You are either uniquely special or entirely worthless. You aren't actively trying to cause chaos or be manipulative. You are simply exhausted from living in constant emotional emergency mode.
Finally, we reach Section 4, Fractured Realities and Identities. This is what happens when the mind splinters.
Schizophrenia is fascinating but terrifying because it actually fractures reality in two completely distinct ways. First, you have what doctors call positive symptoms. Now, this doesn't mean good. It means adding things to reality that shouldn't be there, like hallucinations of hearing critical voices or delusions that strangers are plotting against you, and your brain genuinely perceives these as 100% real. Conversely, you have negative symptoms, which subtract things that should be there. It flattens your emotions, strips away your motivation, and disorganizes your speech. And look, despite how Hollywood movies portray this as some kind of external violence, the real danger in schizophrenia is internal. It's the sheer, deeply isolating terror of simply not knowing what is real.
And then we have dissociative identity disorder, commonly known as DID. When a very young child experiences abuse so severe and horrific that their mind simply cannot process it, the brain does something amazing to protect itself. It compartmentalizes. It literally creates distinct identity states, which are called alters, to hold those specific memories, emotions, or roles. One identity might hold the anger, another might stay innocent and childlike, and another holds the sheer trauma so the main identity can just get through the day and function. Listen to me, this is not acting, it's not a movie plot. It is a tragic but absolutely incredible survival response, a shattered mind compartmentalizing abuse that was just way too great for one child to bear. At the end of the day, these disorders are not character flaws. They aren't a lack of willpower, and they definitely aren't traumatic phases. The individuals navigating them are fighting grueling physical wars inside their own neurology every single day of their lives. So I'm going to leave you with this one thought. If we could truly see these invisible battles, how quickly would we replace all of our judgment with empathy? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer.